Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Unity Technology Roadmap discussion. So the objectives for this session are for you to decide if upcoming releases are right for your project, for you to understand Unity's plans on how to deliver these new releases, for you to review that Unity is working on the needed areas, and lastly, for you to collaborate with us to prioritize which areas need the most attention. I will start with a short presentation where Unity's technology is going and how Unity plans on getting there. After that, I would like to switch to an open discussion to bring in all your questions and concerns into our understanding of what needs the most attention. First, let me do some quick introductions. I am Alex Leon. I'm a director in the Unity's R&D department based in Copenhagen. With us in this first row, we have a number of the Unity R&D engineers who've been giving presentations thus far to help fill in any details or answer any particular questions you may have for this discussion when they come up. But first, let's start with a little history. Last year, we heard the biggest issue for users was instability and that Unity did not fix bugs fast enough. To address this, we created a weekly patch system where we fixed critical bugs as quickly as we could. Once a month, we roll up these patches into a fully tested release. And you can access these patches at this URL. The second concern from users was that we were just not communicating enough and talking with all of you. Our communications are a work in progress. For now, we have increased our developer participation in the forums, on the email lists, in these Unite conferences, and right here with this roadmap talk. Over the last year, we had been working on 5.0, which was released last month. I won't go into all the highlights, as plenty of the other talks have covered aspects of that, but for those who aren't aware, this was an incredibly large release for us, with 57 pages of release notes, numerous features in there, 290 improvements, and over 500 fixes. We took our time with this release to try and make sure everything we wanted was in it. However, we want to change that. Before, we aimed to have a big feature set and take all the time we needed to make a high-quality product. 5.0 was a perfect example of this. For the future, we're moving towards being high-quality and faster releases. That means development of features may be more incremental and have more interim usefulness while still being polished, but not complete from a feature standpoint. This means we will ship what is ready for a release, not wait for features to complete. Sorry for the small text here, but we're starting with this new development process plan and transitioning it to it with 5.1. We are on a 3-month release cycle now, and each of these 3-month release cycles will require 4 months of development. Unity 5.1 just recently entered beta. Since the 5.0 release, beta access is now a feature for all pro customers, and you can download it now at this URL. And Unity 5.1 will be shipping in June. Thank you. 5.1 has a lot of focus on fixing things, of rework and refactorings. This is a short list of the things that were addressed in this way. The rest are features that were worked on in parallel to 5.0 and are now ready for this release. So what's past 5.1? We're still putting together the full list, but here's an early look of what may be in Unity 5.2, which will be due in September. Please remember, these are just candidates for refactors or features that will be ready in September. But with our faster release cycle and keeping our quality high, we may need to cut these features from the release if we find them not to be to our standards of readiness. So what's after 5.2? Well, that one is definitely still being determined. But while 5.0 was in progress, we did a lot of talking with you, our users, to see where your pain points were and where the concerns are. And this was the initial list we collected. Of this list, most of them have begun investigation, prototyping, or are already in active development. They're just not ready in the near term and able to predict which release they'll land in. Unity's mission has always been to democratize game development. And the only way to do that is to listen to you users. And this is what this open discussion is about. Unity wants to collaborate with you by taking your questions and requests and gather them up to see what are the most pressing issues. So for this open discussion, I want a couple ground rules to set. We want to be able to keep this quick to allow everyone to ask their questions. So please, no introductions. Keep the questions simple and keep the questions to only one at a time. You may ask more questions, but please wait for a response before going on to the next. And we're open to all topics, though some of them may be easier to answer than others with who we have available for expertise. And let us open it up.
Hello. What are the future plans for multi-scene editing? I mean, I've seen it before. I mean, then it died down.
We have some improvements in the backend coming in either 5.1 or 5.2. I'm not sure off the top of my head which version. That allows for better loading of scenes and unloading of scenes in sort of like a little sandbox environment. And moving on from that, we're going to be writing some editor tools that facilitate multi-scene editing within the editor without having to write any custom code. Yeah, it's ongoing work, and I'm not sure what release they're going to hit, but we are working on it. I just heard it's 5.3 for the API stuff. Yeah, the multi-scene API will be 5.3.
Would there be alternatives for IDE on Mac in future? Or improvements to the existing monodevelop? Like what specifically?
So regarding the IDEs for Mac, well, let me just answer the monodevelop question. We intend to change how we're using developing for monodevelop. We are trying to get away from having a custom build of monodevelop. We are moving to having a plugin which will interact with Unity to monodevelop, which will allow us to catch up to the very latest, and from then on be using whatever Xamarin is releasing as the fundamental latest. So we will decouple ourselves from it in that respect. So that should bring in all the features, localization, whatever it may be. Oh, yeah. Sure. Any other questions?
Are there any plans to update the handling of asset packages that you bring in? Like, is it going to be possible to uninstall an asset or to track assets? So for when you're updating asset packages that are being brought in?
Is this asset store or asset bundles or?
Both, well, asset store and also asset packs that we make ourselves, but mostly asset store too.
For the asset store, I'm not sure of any particular, I know we were changing the tools to now be upload mechanism through a web interface to help handle and manage your packages and versions. But other than that, we don't have any particular things in the works at the moment. Is there specific things you're looking for?
Yeah, the ability to uninstall an asset. So let's say you bring something into a project, you realize this is not what you want, and then to be able to delete it. It's fine if the developer, maybe one of the options is to make the asset store developers put everything in one folder. But if they put it in one folder, it's easy to delete. If they spread it out across a whole bunch of different folders, then it's very hard to track.
So essentially thinking about something like NuGet, for example, right? Where you specify the packages you use and the versions you use, and you can just install and uninstall as you...
Yeah, and update.
Like...
Right, yeah. Exactly, yes.
Like, it's an issue that we're very aware of, and there are some longer-term thoughts. Like, we have some technology that is brewing that is related to that, and we have tentative plans to build something in that direction on top of that. When this is going to hit is, at this point, very difficult to say. Like, we want to make the first step happen of that technology platform, and then we're moving further, and we want to investigate ways in that direction. But near term or even midterm, I think there is nothing concrete in the plans.
It would be great to have some way just to be able to uninstall stuff, or even just to be able to bring up sort of a log of tracking what was installed where. That would be really useful.
Well, that's noted, and we'll definitely take it under advisement. I think there was one other aspect that I remember hearing about is that the classic problem for a number of asset store packages is not to actually have a standing project using Unity. They keep on re-importing to a new project and deliver a new asset package. We have some pieces of tooling in there to assume you're maintaining a project ID by using the same project, and very few people actually do that, is what we find out. If you did, you would actually get updates in that mechanism, but it unfortunately is something you have to rethink since barely anyone is doing that at the moment. Next questions?
Hi, my question is with regards to source code control. Essentially, that most of the Unity, I don't know, the proprietary formats are binary, so it's kind of hard to track changes between, like for example, if you just made different player settings for a different build, and another team member tries to change that as well, and you end up overwriting each other's changes, and you don't know exactly what has changed anymore. So is there any plans in particular for addressing this issue?
I believe, for one, there should be a checkbox that needs to be set for making sure you're not saving binary in most cases.
Like, I think this is good.
There is a forced text, I think.
Yeah, but is there any plans for having some kind of diffing for binaries as well? Because as you all understand, a lot of developers do use the binary formats as well.
Right. What I hinted at with this question was that there's new collaboration tools in the works that tie into version control, as well as like making collaboration between team members much better and much tighter integrated into the editor. And in the future also give a technology platform, for example, to allow package management to happen sort of that ties in with the version control to some extent. But for example, you will be able to see, you will have a locking feature, so you will be able to tell other team members, hey, I'm working on this asset, don't touch it. Stuff like that. So there are improvements in the works here. I don't think we have any concrete plans in terms of when they will actually hit, but they're under active development, and there's going to be news sometime soonish.
Also, to be clear, which assets were you having the most trouble with?
Well, I can't exactly disclose, but yeah, generally, even things as simple as project settings, it's kind of hard to manage if it's in binary. So, yeah.
Is that covered in force to text? Do we know? Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's a project setting or setting somewhere that you need to set that, and in the future, just always keep it text to make it much easier for the. It's our recommendation, if I recall. Any other questions? No? Oh.
What is the future of Unity web player? I mean, this is related to like Google trying to shut down the NP API.
Yes,
So-
Chrome has disabled easy access to the web player very recently. We believe the future of this is WebGL. In 5.0, of course, that's in preview, and we're still working on it. It works for a number of projects, but we're still ironing out a lot of the edge cases and making sure a lot more other features work on it. So that's why we leave it still under the preview label. I think that will continue in 5.1 as well. We will be continuing some further work in 5.2, as noted in the list, some WebGL 2 support. But from our statistics and what we know, and we believe we should be able to get performance up on WebGL and catch up and be able to deliver in this manner instead of web player in the future.
Hi. I was just wondering about the web player, that Chrome is losing support for that, but it's because they want to enforce some security or a way of creating the plugins. That, for example, Flash Player follows those guidelines, so they are able to still run on Chrome. So Chrome won't stop the Flash Player because the Flash Player has been updated to be up to date or to the requirements that Chrome has, right? So I was wondering if it's possible to just improve the web player plugin to meet those requirements and be at the same level, and keep supporting web player plugin in Chrome until web player is mature enough to be a good alternative.
We considered that, but the problem is that it will take porting work for the web player for what essentially at this point is a dead technology, because plugins are clearly not the way forward with the web. So it would be quite a lot of work to make this functional just for Chrome. And then we would have two versions of the web player that we would have to maintain. So like from a maintenance standpoint and resource standpoint, this does not make any sense. So at this point we decided, okay, we're going to focus everything on WebGL, and the web player is ultimately going to die at some point.
Hi. I don't know whether this has been asked before. Can you make the tags behave like layers in terms of hierarchy? So when I change the tags in a parent, there's an option to whether you want to change the text of the children as well. You understand the question?
I think so, but
Yes, that's a feature request. We haven't actually heard that one before, so I'll pass it on to the team responsible when we get back home.
thank you.
I remember seeing one of the points for the future is localization. Can you share any details you have on that?
Sure. Localization, we're doing some preparation for the editor at this point to be able to localize the editor to some of the main languages. Largely, it's just preparation work and moving our strings around and setting them up to be able to be localized.
Sorry.
It will not land in 5.1 in terms of a localized editor, but it will probably come soon after. As to when, it depends on the countries we're working with and the translations. But it's a localized editor proper, hopefully.
So it's a localized editor. It's not a localization solution for the projects necessarily.
No, no localization for runtime at the moment.
Hello. I'm not sure if I missed in the slide or not, but are there any plan for Retina Display? Because currently in my workflow, only Unity is pixelated.
Yes, there is actually a handful of developers working on the Retina display currently. Not clear as to when it will be complete, but work is actually being done on it right now.
Oh, thank you.
No further questions, really? No.
Is work still being done on asset bundles and in specifically simplifying the workflow of project members and team members? Or is that sort of been finished now that 5.5.0 is out?
No, it is ongoing work. From all I know, like right now, we're mostly wrapping up some stuff and then improving like some of the rough edges of the work we did for 5.0. And then there's some longer term plans, some like significant improvements around asset bundles. Like for example, we want to ultimately move the players to use asset bundles exclusively, so there's no custom player format anymore. Like even if you build a player, you build asset bundles. That's the ultimate goal. But in terms of like concrete stuff that's sure to hit in the near-term future, I'm only aware of like minor improvements at the moment.
I saw you guys had some development on NavMesh agent. What are you guys working on? Like, could you be more specific? Or
no, just introductions of them, I guess. Sure.
So, like, okay, I'm on the NavMesh guy, but I know of some things. Like, they're working on improving the API such that you can bake out stuff yourself, such that you can have multiple nav meshes per scene and actually, like, have a prefab, for example, that has its own nav mesh asset, and then you can just instantiate the prefab and the nav meshes actually work together, stuff like that. That's also in preparation for the new multiscene API, so that every scene can have its own nav mesh, for example. So most of the improvements right now are centered around that. Yeah, the baking of making the baking APIs and making the nav mesh assets more modular. Beyond that, I don't know.
Sweet, thank you.
Question back up.
So in the Unity animation system, the animation graph, I always have to right-click and choose auto or free smooth or constant, right? Are there any shortcut keys for that? I always have to right-click every node I wanted to.
I'm not sure if there are any shortcut keys currently, but one of our developers who's not here at the moment, but will be arriving this afternoon, really?
I think tomorrow.
Okay, I think he comes in tomorrow. We're doing extensive work on improving the animation window at the moment,
Yes.
making it easy to use and fixing workflows, so it's much faster to do things. And I'll provide him with the feedback that some shortcut keys for those kind of things, for changing between, say, smooth step and free and that kind of thing,
Okay.
so that he knows about it.
Do you know the program called Spine?
I'm not an animation person, so I don't.
Yeah, that program is
Okay.
perfect. So
I'll tell him that. I'll write it down
for
now.
animation, maybe.
There's also a number of animation window improvements in 5.1. So if you do like to check out the beta, if you have access, you might be able to see if there's things that make it better already for you, or wait till June.
Any improvements to mesh colliders? I mean, I'm still having troubles with them. Mesh colliders.
Like what kind of improvements?
I don't know. I mean, my physics sometimes fails. I mean, it works fine with box colliders, but things get through mesh colliders still.
Are you on Unity 5 or Unity 4?
I'm on 5.
Okay, because we upgraded to the new version of physics, and things can pass through one another if they're moving too fast and exceeding. Are you using continuous physics or step physics?
Continuous.
Continuous. So that should not happen. So if that's happening, it's probably a bug. So please report a bug so our physics team can look at it.
Sorry, I have another question. With regards to the input system for mobile devices, one hiccup that we encountered while developing on that is that when we actually test it with the Unity remote, for example, there's only accelerometer input. At least the last I checked, that is being passed over to the Unity editor. So we can't test things like gyroscope stuff and compass, and I forgot what else is there actually. And we also noticed that there are some minor differences between iOS and Android in terms of handling some input things, such that we ended up writing our own custom plugins to resolve the differences. So I was wondering what are you doing currently to fix those issues, or if ever at all?
About the first issue, that's good feedback. I will make a note of that. For the second issue, the differences between the separate platforms, that is definitely true of the current input system. Like even platforms like Mac and Windows, the standalones, there's a lot of differences there. It is definitely something that we want to address with the new input system. Like for example, have device profiles. If you connect the gamepad, no matter what platform you're on, we map the buttons the right way so that you can always expect the same button to be in the same place, even if the hardware actually assigns a different ID to the button. Stuff like that. All I can say so far is that it's in the works right now. Like we're working on the input system. We hope to ship at least the first part of it as soon as possible. It was initially meant for 5.2. I don't think that will happen, but maybe from 5.3 onwards, there's going to be hopefully news for the new input system.
And hopefully you do something about camera feeds as well from the Unity remote to the web to the Unity editor. because I think I think it's not really possible right now to actually use the camera feed from within the from the Unity remote, right? So it would be nice if I know it's a pie in the sky thing, but but it would be nice if we are able to do that in some future version.
Yes, to be honest, at this point I haven't even thought about the Unity remote thing, and which is handled by the mobile team, by different teams. So this is good feedback, and I will talk to the guys who are doing that part of the work to make sure that what we do in the input system actually also carries over into that part of Unity.
Is that all?